Hi and welcome. You're listening to Historic Huguenot Street's weekly program on WFNP The Edge, where we discuss New Paltz's history and the history of the Hudson Valley. I'm Kaitlin Gallucci, and I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications at Historic Huguenot Street, which is a nonprofit 10-acre National Historic Landmark District dedicated to preserving historic buildings, artifacts, and manuscripts, and promoting the stories of the Huguenot Street families who founded New Paltz. Historic Huguenot Street is also chartered as an educational corporation by the University of the State of New York, so education is an important part of the organization's mission, and in fact, it always has been. Most people know of New Paltz as the home of SUNY New Paltz, but it was the Huguenot settlers here that began this tradition of education with the development of the first New Paltz school in 1828. And that building still stands today with the original stones intact. You can see it on North Front Street. It's what was formerly Enchanted Toys, right between Bicycle Depot and Mexican Kitchen. The school evolved throughout the 19th century until it became known as the State Teachers College at New Paltz in 1938. And it became SUNY New Paltz, one of the founding schools in the SUNY system, in 1948. In keeping with that tradition of the Huguenot founders, Historic Huguenot Street supports education today in a variety of ways. In addition to scholarships and internships, we also offer 5 school programs year-round, which is a great opportunity for local students to take field trips. A number of these school programs were newly introduced just within the past couple of years, and Historic Huguenot Street school programs have been officially recognized by the New York State Cultural Education Department for adhering to the leading New York State and Common Core standards. Right now, I'm joined by Historic Huguenot Street school programming coordinator, Jen DuBois Bruntil. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Kaitlin.
Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So, can you tell us a bit about the school programs that are available at Huguenot Street?
Sure. So like you said, we offer a variety of different school programs for field trips that students take to the site. They're all kind of focused on different age groups. So our smallest program for like the little ones is called A Little History. Mm-hmm. And that's for kids who are preschool age to kindergarten. So when kids are involved in that kind of program, we start with a story about the Huguenots that we'll kind of just talk about later. Mm-hmm. And then after that, they actually get to take a tour of one of the houses on the street. So the Gene Hasbrook house, it's called the Gene Junior Detective Tour. And we give them magnifying glasses and we tell them they're gonna be a detective and we talk about what a detective does. And then when they actually go through the house, they're asked to figure out what each room they think was used for. And a lot of the rooms,
that's good. Yeah,
a lot of the houses, like you could see, like a lot of the rooms were multi-purpose, so it's a little bit tricky. But we point out different clues and we ask them to really look around, of course, like looking with their eyes, not touching with their hands. And so that's one of the reasons they get the magnifying glasses. And there's a few reproduction items that they get to inspect a little bit more closely.
Oh, that's good.
So they can, it's got the hands-on aspect because that's really important for the little ones especially. Everybody enjoys it.
That's a very new program, right? Like you just recently developed that?
That's our latest program. That's just in the last month or so has been offered. And we had a group in the other day and the preschool teacher was a group of 4-year-olds. Aww. And they were just so enthusiastic and raved about the program, and all the kids really learned something, which was kind of nice. At the end of it, they all came away with a better understanding of the street and who the Huguenots were. And then at the end, we did an activity. It's like a wampum activity, and wampum was one of the things. It's like these beads that were made from the shells, the clog shell and the whelk shell by the Native Americans. And it was originally used by the Native Americans as for ceremonial purposes, to show friendship or peace or denote wartime or whatever. It was kind of sent as a message or used as gifts, and then it was eventually turned into a currency when the Dutch got here.
Okay,
with, the fur trade and different things. So we don't go really, really in depth, but we do hand every child a clam shell and ask them to look at the different colors in it and then notice the colors that are used in the beads. And so they all walk away with a sticker about being a good detective.
Nice.
And they all walk away with their own wampum bracelet at the end of the day.
Cool.
So it's a great program and they really enjoy it, and I enjoy it too because they have a lot of fun. The little ones are always cute.
That's sweet. I'm glad that we have that now. So this is, now that you've introduced that one, this is the first time that now we have school programs for all ages from preschool all the way through high school, right?
Exactly. Pre-K through 12th grade.
That's cool.
And then we, of course, we have college students come to the site as well, but they're normally taking the adult tour.
Right.
So I'm generally kind of in charge of everybody who's in actual pre-K through 12 now.
Cool.
So it's fun. And then the programs that we do probably the most often, we offer a program for 1st through 3rd graders called Colonial Kids. And for these programs, we generally have like a bunch of different stations that kids rotate through. So they're always an introduction about to the site and who the Huguenots were and why they came here. And then after that, the kids kind of break up into 4 groups and they rotate through different stations. And that might include, there's always a couple of house tours and then there's always a couple of activities. And the house tours are never back to back because it's difficult for children to kind of listen and stand for a long time. So if you followed a program around, you would see that they kind of all start together and then they break up into their groups. And then we offer activities like quill writing, where they get to, write and make themselves a little certificate that says, I was here at Huguenot Street.
Oh, nice.
And I wrote with a real quill pen, and then they can take that home to show their mom and dad. And then there's a colonial dress up and game station. So they get out, especially when the weather's nice, they're outdoors, they're playing with the hoop and stick, they're playing with the graces, they're running around, they're they're feeling what it would be like to be in a costume. Well, it is a costume now, but what the clothing may have been like back a long time ago. And then of course they have stone house tours as well. Sometimes they're in the moment tours where the guide is dressed up as someone who would have been from 250 or 300 years ago. That's taking them through the house and asking them what they notice and do you toast your bread with the same toaster that I use? And
right.
And the kids are like, a lot of times kids walk away and say, does she really not know about what a toaster is? So kids are funny. Cute. Yeah. They do. They learn a lot and they have a lot of fun. So that's the goal, right?
Awesome. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and then so that's basically the elementary school students. And then for 7th through 12th graders, we offer a couple of programs. A program we probably do the most for high school and middle school students is a program called Life and Death in the 1700s. And that's a program where, we always start out with we have actually an orientation video that we have older children watch or older students watch.
Sure. They're at the age that they can.
Yeah, right. And it gives a lot of good visuals and it's not as much of a lesson like it is for the elementary school students. It's more of they can digest that much information.
Sure.
And then we break them up into the station kind of rotation again. And then they do a couple of house tours, but the activity that they're involved in takes place in the burial ground. And so that's the original burial ground to the street, and has people buried there going back to the 1600s. So we've kind of designed a lesson where we talk about the difference, how death was seen a long time ago and how it's seen now, and that it kind of touched everyone and some of those statistics. But then we try to make a personal connection with them, because it's one thing to go to a site and to hear about the Huguenots as a group of people and use that word a lot. And it's something different to connect with a name and a person specifically. So what we'll have them do is we give them a card with someone's name who was buried in the burial ground, and then they're asked to kind of go find that person's grave and just look and see what it says on it and who's buried around that person, and then make inferences. What do you think this person was like? What age did they pass out? Which were they a mother?
That's interesting.
Yeah, were they a father? Were they a daughter or son? What are your inferences as to from what you can gather here? And then we talk about it, and then they're given a historical person card with information about that person's life. So
that's nice.
They walk away from that activity knowing about someone who lived here,
rather than
the
Huguenots as
collectively
a generalization.
As just a big group of people, which doesn't really it's harder to make a connection like that. So it's a good activity. And then the last activity is an activity. It's really for French students, so it's high school students in general.
Okay.
And it's called the Que voulez-vous is the name of it, but it's a French portrait program. So they take some house tours as well and learn about some of the people who lived on the street through the tours. But then they do an activity in the Lefevre house, or the 1799 house, where they're asked to pair up, and then one of the partners is the artist and one of the partners is the descriptor first, and so the person who's describing goes into the portrait gallery and they pick a portrait, and then in French they write down their description of what the person that they're looking at. And then when their partner comes in, their partner is given a clipboard and a piece of paper so that they're not facing the portraits, they're facing away. And so they team up with their partner and they get the description and they draw whatever their partner's describing.
Oh, wow.
And then they're asked to walk into the room and match it up.
Find which one they were just drawing. That's cool.
And you'd be amazed. I mean, some of them come out with some really interesting portraits, and some of them come out with some really accurate ones, and so it's always fun to have the kids like engaged in like an activity like that. So, no, that's really cool. I didn't know it was like that. That's so
fun.
now you're getting like the whole lowdown.
Yeah.
All the stuff
I'll have to come
department.
take one of those
you should
programs.
Hop onto it sometime. I'll put the portrait in my office.
Cool.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I actually have a couple of those portraits are like ancestors of mine.
That's
so
right.
It's neat. I didn't mention this, but I am a 12th generation descendant from Louis DuBois, who was one of the first Huguenots to come here to Huguenot Street and kind of look around and say, like, maybe we should like develop our own community. And he's one of the patentees and founders and stuff. So it's kind of a neat connection for me to be able to work here.
Oh, totally.
Have that history to it, because living in this town, it wasn't until I really worked here that I knew exactly what that lineage was. And I mean, I knew I was connected and like I knew I was kind of related, but there's a lot of people with the last name DuBois. And so, I mean, I can't even keep up with people who are like, after the first cousins, it becomes kind of foggy. Like,
I'm sure.
So it's a nice connection. I was married on the street,
that's right. Oh,
I've
that's
always
so
loved
nice.
the street, so the fact that I work here now is special.
No, that's really cool, because if you think about it, then it's like I know you're an educator, but working here, you also are getting to not just teach students, but you're kind of teaching them your like own family history, which is really cool, because I'm sure, it kind of makes there's a different way to probably like talk about it, and you're a little bit more passionate, maybe.
It's more personal, for sure. Do you know, my daughter's in first grade this year, and the first graders from Duzine always come every year. And so there's a little boy in her class.
Was she bragging about being a DuBois?
Well, she's very quiet. I don't think that really goes with her yet. She's not really a big bragger yet, but a little boy in her class, I'm friends with his mother, and he came home, and I was just chatting with her like one day, and I said, I had the first graders, and I had our kids class, and she said, oh my gosh, I know. And I said, what do you mean? Like, what did he say? And she said, oh no, he came home and he was like, Mom, did you know that Jen's a Huguenot? She was like, well, I think what you meant was she's an ancestor, a descendant. And he was like, no, she's a Huguenot. We found it today. It's awesome. So that was funny. Like, but it stuck with him.
That's
like,
funny.
He was like,
no, for sure. That then makes it like a connection for them as well.
Yeah. I mean, they were all like eyes lit up, and they're like, well, all right, I know somebody now. I know a Huguenot.
That's really cool. Because exactly. Otherwise, it feels like so distant. I mean, you can be like, actually, there are descendants of these people, and one of them is standing right here talking to you.
One of them is me. And now we're gonna go into the DuBois fort and play games. But this is like a fort that was built by
my house.
Right.
That's really cool.
It's funny you mentioned that, because this doesn't really have to do with school programs, but one of the programs we do is the Trick or Treat the Street. Halloween, where for the last couple of years, I and my family, so my two daughters and my husband, we've all dressed up, and we've been stationed at some different houses. And so this year we were at the Deo house, and so my husband was dressed up with a top hat and a suit and spectacles, and I had my hair done as if I was from the Gilded Age, and long dress, and my kids were dressed up too. And so I saw some people who kids who I knew had come to the street, or just any kid. I had maybe 5 or 6 kids say like, I love your house.
Oh my gosh.
Do you live here? Is it fancy inside? I was like, oh honey, I don't actually live here. I'm just dressed up. But but they were so like, they're like enchanted by it kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
No,
was
totally.
We had people like say, "Can you take a picture with our child?" Like, I felt like I was a character at Disney World.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah, but it was really fun. I really enjoyed that event.
Yeah.
It's really a nice way to bring the community in.
Right. You can tell that like it's really making a connection with them.
Yeah. So
Cool.
it's good. It's fun. Yeah. It's a really fun job. I used to be a teacher at the New Paltz Middle School for the better part of 10 years. And, when I had my kids, when I had my second daughter, I stayed home for a while. But the thing I miss most about being a teacher is the students. It's really the kids. It's not, the paperwork or the grading or any of that.
Yeah.
It's that connection with the kids. And so here it's like, it's so great because everyone loves a field trip.
Yeah.
And I love being the person who can like provide that for them.
Yeah.
And teach them something, but have fun with them and like see them smile. And when I see a little kid write down on their quill paper, like, "This was so fun. I learned so much. I had a great day." Like, or they come up and they hug you at the end. That just like, it goes straight to my heart. Yeah. And I'm like so happy that's like, I love my job.
Yeah. Oh, good. No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. I mean, there's so many opportunities to bring those students here.
Yeah.
So speaking of, the school programs, something else that you just started back up this week is the Little Huguenots after school program, which you just launched last year. Right. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. So we launched it last year. It was just kind of the pilot year. Let's see how it goes. So we put out a flyer and I kind of brainstormed some ideas, like, let me do some things that would be fun for kids, but also doable with a group that is kindergarten, first and second graders.
Okay,
so
right. These are young kids again.
Yeah. So these are, generally students from Duzine Elementary School. So I kind of brainstormed this program, like cooking and crafts at Huguenot Street, like Little Huguenots. And so we had like a really great response to it last year. And we did, some different projects. We baked cookies, colonial cookies. I tried to use recipes that are, that say colonial, but of course we're using a stove and, cookie sheets.
Right. It's open to interpretation.
Yes, totally. Right. The kids were fine with it.
Yeah.
And then we made like little stone houses and like a local landscaper like donated the stones. Like everybody, if you ask, most people like just want to like help you if you're working with kids. So the community was really supportive and the kids had a great time. And then this year we decided, okay, we're going to offer it again. And the response was overwhelming. I mean, it was unfortunate. I took more kids than I initially thought I would because we had so many. And so we had our first Little Huguenots on Tuesday after school. It goes from 3:45 to 5 on Tuesdays. And so it happened to be on Valentine's Day. So we decided to make colonial biscuits, but heart-shaped for Valentine's Day.
Oh, sweet.
And then so the kids kneaded the dough and they cut out used the cookie cutters to cut out the biscuits. And they each brought home this little package, like in this little like pink container. And they wrote a little note to their parents. And that was their Valentine's Day present for their parents. And there's a lot of smiling faces. So
that's sweet.
Really and I have to give a shout out to my intern and my 3 volunteers from the SUNY New Paltz Elementary Education Program.
Oh, yeah.
They're outstanding. I mean, I kind of reached out to see if people would be interested because it's really a win-win. Like the elementary education students are getting this experience of working with small children, which that's their career that they're going into. Right. And I need the help, and I really want people who like kids like that. So it was just like a perfect blending of the two things. And so what ended up happening was I got these 4 ladies who are helping me, and they brought such enthusiasm and kindness with them. Oh, and it just really helps to make the whole thing run smoothly and, good feelings around it. So
no, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So right now we're just going to take a quick break. You're listening to WFNP, The Edge. Hi, and welcome back. You're listening to Historic Huguenot Street's weekly program on WFNP The Edge. I'm Kaitlin Gallucci, and I'm speaking to School Programming Coordinator Jen Bruntil about the educational programs and events available on Huguenot Street. So Jen, you recently wrote a children's book about the history of the Huguenots.
I did. Yes, I did.
It's so cool.
Thanks. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Well, I mean, I wrote it because when I started trying to tell the story of the Huguenots to small children, it's kind of an involved story. You've got religious persecution, you've got like these ideas of like freedom of religion and then tolerance and then, where do they go and fleeing and like all of this stuff.
Right.
So it was kind of a lot to digest, especially for like a first grader or,
of course,
even a fourth or sixth grader. So what I ended up doing was kind of creating some visuals and creating this character that I called Hugo the Huguenot. And I would show him to the group and I would say, okay, so everybody, this is Hugo and he's going to represent the Huguenots.
Right.
And so I'm just going to kind of take you through his story. So, he's living in France and he's being persecuted and the king's being really mean to him and he's scared.
Yeah.
What do you think he does? And they're like, he moves. I'm like, right. And then I kind of showed on this chart paper this little map and like I did this little lesson and I showed how he like sailed this boat across the ocean and he ended up in the New World. And I tell the story of how he went to Kingston first and then he finally came here. So it's really this journey of Hugo. Even though Hugo's not like this one person, because the Huguenots kind of fled and they stayed in Germany for a while and they moved around, but it was this continuum. Like it was too hard for me to break it up to so many pieces. So once I used the visuals and I had this little character, then I had a story. And the kids, when I tell the story, it's just like that. You could hear a pin drop when I like.
Oh wow!
And then he came to this area and he looked around. And they're all hanging, and I'm like, they're really listening,
Yeah.
So then I got it in my head. I'm like, maybe I could like really turn this into like write this story down. So I went home and I was kind of laying in bed one night and I was thinking about it, and this poem started to I don't know, like evolve in my head. And I got a few stanzas in and then I was like, I should write this down. This is some pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
So that poem became what is now Hugo the Huguenot, and it goes to print next week. So the book should be out in a few weeks. Yeah, so I'm really excited, I'm really proud about it. And I connected with this local illustrator, Matt Kelly, and he has done some outstanding illustrations. The artwork in the book is really magnificent.
Beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, so we've been working together and kind of collaborating this whole time. And so the fact that it's going to actually be a book in like a few weeks, I'm really, really excited about.
Yeah, everyone here is really excited. Yeah, it's cool. We've never had something so cool.
Yeah, well, right. So, come to Huguenot Street if like when we open and it'll be there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And so you'll be doing a reading of that, in April at our tea time event, right?
Right. Yeah. April 22nd is tea time from 2 to 4, and so it's an event where it's like a little like a little lunch and a little tea, and kids come. And last year, Valerie Tripp was the author, and she kind of talked about the American Girl dolls and the stories behind them and how she wrote them. She's been an author for a long time, and what that process is like. So I kind of plan to follow her. Follow kind of what she did, like talking a little bit about the book and reading the book, and then like talking about the process of writing a book. And Matt will be there to talk about the process of creating these illustrations and how he did that. So kids can get a little inside view as to what that is, and it's kind of nice to be able to teach kids. There is a lot of editing and reviewing and looking at your work over again to be able to create something.
Right.
But that's a nice lesson to teach and to learn.
Definitely. So they realize that that's really how it's done. It's not just your teachers telling you to rewrite things.
Yeah. I think I always remembered when someone kind of from the outside came in, or you saw somebody talk about something that they like this project. You do projects in school, but you just think they're related just to your school and your teacher. Right. But a project in the outside can turn into something really cool.
Yeah.
So, I hope to share that experience with them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Would you like to read a little bit of the book for us?
Sure would. Thanks for asking.
Awesome.
So this story, like I said, started out as a poem. And so that's kind of how it reads. So
okay, cool.
Yeah, I'll read it like that.
We have time if you'd like. You can read the whole thing if you want.
Yeah, okay, well, it's not that long.
Cool.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so Hugo the Huguenot. What is Hugo's story? It's quite a tale to tell. I'll tell you, and you'll not forget. You shall remember well. In the beginning of the story, Hugo started out in France. In a land filled with Catholics, Hugo was a Protestant. The Catholics did not look kindly on this difference of religion. They persecuted Hugo and drove him out. It wasn't his decision. So he moved along to Germany, to a place they called the Paltz. He stayed a while, but he feared his stay would be at too high a cost. Again he said, "I have to go. Once more I need to flee." He climbed aboard his ship and sailed out to the open sea. He found his way to Wiltwyck. Kingston it would later be named. He lived there with the Dutch, but still longed for his own place. Hugo traveled down the Wachhill to this land, and he said, "Hey, this place reminds me of the Palts. It's here that I shall stay." But there lay one more problem for this Huguenot from France. This place belonged to others. It was not his land to prance. Who, you ask, belonged this land? A group of people who have roamed these lands for longer than the likes of me and you. These people, they were native to this land we came to heed. They were the Esopus people of the nation of the Lenape. In the end, a deal was made, a trade between the two. And finally, Hugo had a home, just like me and you. And so our story comes to an end, for in New Paltz he came to stay. Hugo settled in and liked it here. We're glad he found his way. And that's the end of the story.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then after that, there's some teaching pages. So
great.
There's a map of the journey of the Huguenots, shows Europe and the Atlantic Ocean and the New World, where we are now. And then there's also a purchase of the Paltz page, which talks a little bit about when the land was purchased, when the Huguenots purchased the land from the Native Americans at the Lenape, and a little map on how much land that was, and where we're talking about, and the things that were traded from the Huguenots to the Esopus, kettles and axes and shirts and wampum and things like that. And then the last page is a term center page, which goes through and defines terms like Huguenot or Protestant or Douzaine or Lenape.
Oh, cool.
So there's a lot of history involved in this little story too. So it's really a book, not just for children, but for their parents and grandparents and young and old alike. Yeah,
it summarizes the history that we know from being here, from being adults and knowing the adult story. But exactly. That's it just summarizes it, which is great.
Yeah, in a nice little way. And I can't tell you how many people who have come on the field trip, first grade parents, I have a first grader, so I know a lot of the same people, and they've said after the field trip, hey, I didn't know that. That was interesting. I've lived in New Paltz my whole life. I didn't know what a Huguenot was, or I didn't really understand. I didn't know that the Gilded Otter wasn't just a restaurant; that it was the name of the boat that some of the Huguenots came over on. So there's all these little pieces that people pick up. So I feel if people get the book, they'll learn a lot too.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. That's great. Well, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
For those interested, you can register for that tea time event at huguenotstreet.org/tea time. And before we go, I'll mention that we have an event this Saturday. That event will be a talk and book signing with Vernon Benjamin, author of The History of the Hudson River Valley from Wilderness to the Civil War. Benjamin's book chronicles the valley's development from Native American homeland to Revolutionary battlefield and beyond. Copies of his book will be available for sale at the event, which will take place at Dale Hall at 6 Broadhead Avenue at 2 p.m. this Saturday. We're wrapping up now, but listeners can tune in every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. for the rest of the semester at WFNP.org or 88.7 FM to hear more from Historic Huguenot Street. Visit huguenotstreet.org for information on all of our upcoming events. You can also follow us on social media and sign up for our email list to stay informed on what's happening on the street. Thanks for listening.